Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. In this video we'll be discussing how to import CSV data to a database using C#. A CSV is a comma-separated value file and it stores tabular data where each column is separated by a comma and each row is separated by a new line. As you can see here, we've got our stock list CSV, which just contains a list of products, and then we've got 3 columns: product, product code and price. You can see they're separated by a comma, and then we've got 37 lines, each separated by a new line at the end here. In the description below there is a link to our GitHub page where you can find this product CSV and the code files used for this tutorial. Feel free to download them and take a look. Okay, now before we can import our CSV, we first need to create our database. So you need to open SQL Server Management Studio, connect to your relevant server, highlight the databases column, right click and select New Database. This will bring up the database creation screen. We're going to call our database CSV import. We can leave these other settings for now, they don't need to be changed. We'll click OK, and our database has been created. Okay, now we need to create the table. We do this by clicking on the Tables folder, right clicking, selecting Table. This will create us to the table creation screen. Now we're going to base our table on our CSV file, and if you remember from our CSV file we had 3 columns: product, product code, price. So we're going to need to create the corresponding columns. So the first, we're going to create our product column. We're going to make it envarchar 50, and we're going to untick allow nulls. Next we'll create our product code column. Again, envarchar 50, and we'll untick allow nulls. Finally, we'll create our price column, which will be a decimal, and we'll make it a precision of 18.2, and untick allow nulls. Now we just save this, and we'll name it products. Click OK. And as you can see, our products table has been created. You can see our columns here that match our CSV file. Okay, now we've created our table, we can go over to Visual Studio and start writing our code. So open your version of Visual Studio. We'll create our new project by going to File, New, and then Project. The type of project we want to create is a console app. So if you can't find that in the list, do a search for it. We want to create a console app with .NET Framework, so make sure you have that one selected. Click Next. We'll name our file products CSV import demo, and we'll ensure that this is the correct location. Yep, that's where I want to store it. We'll click Create, and our project will begin to be created. The first thing we need to do in our program is set up our SQL connection. Do this by creating a using statement. Within our using statement, we'll initialize a variable of the type SQL connection. We'll give it the name con, and we'll assign it the value new SQL connection. You'll need to import this program to your library. You can do that by clicking on this orange little light bulb over here. It comes up when you select this. Then you want to import the using system.data.sql client. Okay, now that's added. Now within here we need to initialize our database. We'll be using a connection string. Of course your connection string will depend on where your server is located, the version of SQL Server Management Studio, and how you're authenticated to use your server. You can read more about these on the Microsoft website if you're unsure of how to do this. But I'll just copy and paste my connection string from my database in here. I'm using a local version of SQL Server Management Studio, so I'll just be using my integrated security. So I won't need to write in my username and password, but you might need to do that for yours. Within our using statement, the first thing we want to do is initialize our connection, we do that by doing con.open. This opens up our SQL connection to the database. Then we need to initialize our StreamReader. The StreamReader is used to read data from a file. So we'll create a variable of type StreamReader, give it the name reader, assign it the value new StreamReader. Now again, we'll need to import this. You need to click using system.io. We need to initialize our StreamReader with the location of our stock list CSV. So I'll just paste that into there. It's important to remember to make sure you use these @ symbols in both these strings. Otherwise, the compiler won't be able to recognize the slashes. Of course, you can not use the @ and just do double slashes, but I prefer to do it this way. Okay, now that we've initialized our StreamReader, we need to create a while loop. And within our while loop, we'll have the condition not reader.end of stream. This while loop will continue until our reader has reached the end of the stream and there's nothing left to read in from the file. In other words, once it's gotten to the bottom of the file and it's finished reading in line 37. Okay, now within our while loop, we need to read in the lines. So we'll do var line equals reader.readLine. This will read in the file line by line. So every loop through of this while loop will read in the line. The while loop will move on to the next line. We'll read it again and again and again until there's no lines left in the file, and then the while loop will exit. Okay, now that we've got our line from the file, we need to separate our columns using the string split. So we'll create a variable called values, and we'll assign it the value of line.split. And we're going to split on the comma because that's what separates each column. And this will just create an array for each column. So our array will have 3 elements in it. Okay, now that we've got our elements, we need to create our SQL insert. So we do that by creating var SQL, and then we're going to write out an insert statement string. So we'll do insert into, and now we need to do the name of our database, which is CSV import.dbo.products, which is the name of our table. So this is the name of our database, and this is the name of our table. Then we'll do values, and then within here we're going to concatenate a string of all the values we want to insert. So first we're going to insert our product, which is the first value in our array, which of course starts at 0. So this will get out the product name. Remember to surround this with a single quote, as it's a string. SQL will throw an error otherwise. We'll put in our comma. Values 1. Which will be our product code. Again, surrounded by a single quote. Oh, almost missed one out there. As it's a string value. And do a plus. And then values 2, which is our final column, which is the price. Of course, we don't need to surround this with a single quote as it's a decimal value. So there we go, our SQL statement has been built. Now we've built our SQL statement, we need to actually carry out the SQL and execute it on our connection. We do this using something called an SQL command. The SQL command allows you to execute SQL queries or stored procedures. So we'll start by creating a variable called CMD and assign it the value of new SQL command. The first part of the command we need to build is the text. So this is the query that's going to be executed. So we do cmd.commandText. And we're going to assign it the value SQL because that's the SQL statement we've just built and that we want to execute. Next we need to do command type, which which in this instance is text, so make sure you do system.data.command-type.text. That's because our query here is pure text. We're just going to get the SQL to run a pure text query. Next, we're going to set up our connection, which we've initialized up here, our SQL connection. This is the connection directly to our database. So we'll do cmd.connection equals con. And finally, we'll do cmd.execute, non-query. Now this will execute our query. Make sure you put the brackets at the end there. Okay, there we go. So now, every time we go through this loop, we'll read the line, we'll split out the values, we'll build our SQL statement, we'll start our SQL command, we'll execute our SQL command, and then we'll loop back through, we'll read in the next line, and we'll do all the same until there are no more lines left to read, and then we'll exit the while loop. At which point, at the bottom of this using statement, we want to do con.close. We never want to keep our connection to our database open. This will just close it off, stops our program from using it. We could run this now, but it will cause an error. And the reason that an error will be caused is because we'll be reading in our heading line. The heading line is the first line of a CSV. Not all CSVs contain it, but the heading line will define what the columns are. So we know that the first column is product, the second column is product code, and the final column is price. At the moment, our program will read in this line, and it will try to insert price into our price column in the database, which will cause an exception because, of course, it's not the word price is not a decimal. So there are a number of ways we could avoid this. We could have a CSV, we could just remove the heading from the CSV file. We could do some validation checks, but the simplest way to do it is to just not read in the first line. We do this by first creating a variable called line number, assign it the value of 0. Then we're going to create an if statement just under where we've done var line equals reader.readLine. It will be if line number does not equal 0. Then we'll just copy all this code here, put it inside our if statement, and then outside of our if statement we'll do line number plus plus, which will increment the value of line number. Okay, so let me just explain what we've done here. So on our first pass through of the while loop, we first enter, we'll read in the line, which will be the first line of the file, which of course is the heading line. We'll go to the if statement, and at this point line number is 0, because that's what we set it at to begin with, and we're on our first pass through. So we won't meet the condition for this if statement, so we'll pass over all of this, so we won't process the header line. We'll then increment line number by 1, then we'll go back through the while loop, we'll read in the second line, which of course is the second line of product data, just under the header column. We'll make it into the if statement, because at this point line number does equal 1. We'll come in here, we'll process our data, we'll insert it to the database, and we'll keep looping through until we reach the end of the file, at which point we'll exit the while loop and the connection will be closed. Okay, now finally, for sanity purposes, I'm going to do a console.writeLine at the end of this to let me know that the process is done. So we do product import complete and do a console.readLine. Okay, now this should be ready to run, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll insert our data to the database without any issues. Okay, let's go. It's just building. We've got our products import complete, so I'll close this. Now I'll go back over to our SQL Server Management Studio, go over to our products table, do select top 1000. As you can see, we've got all of our products inserted to the database. Of course, we've only got 36 rows because we've skipped the first line. We didn't want to import that, that's the header line. And we've just imported our first 36 products. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. As mentioned at the start of the video, our GitHub page can be found in the link in the description where you can find the code files and the product CSV we've used in this tutorial. Make sure you check out our website, codeabsorb.com, for more C# tutorials. Thank you for watching. See you next time.